Hello everybody and welcome to my vlog, BlackStar.ArtStudios. I'm going to be showing you how I made this hand soap pump with resin. So first I start by getting all of the items I need for the pump. I have my colors and then any glitters or any foil flakes that I'll be using. I grab those, and after I mix everything together, mix the resin together, I like to start by putting in the color. I'm using this blue, and I'll link down below the type of mica powder I'm using. So right now I'm just going to mix all of the blue into the resin. Make sure it's all nice and using the kind of consistency that I want to make sure that it is not clear consistency with the blue. I want it as dark blue as possible, or as blue as possible. And then I add in the foil flakes, and I always have to be careful with this because it is kind of like sticks to the gloves, and then it's just get a huge mess. So I just put in a little bit of the foil flakes. I use some gold, and then some of it fell on the table. So I'm going to put it inside the cup and then mix that well until it looks well mixed on the kind of way that I want it to look. Give that a good stir. And then I will pour it in the top lid of the soap dispenser. First, I'm gonna add in a little bit of just clear resin, just because I had an idea in my head I was gonna do a flower, but as I started to do it, I realized that I didn't want to, and yeah, so kind of put some of that resin back because I poured way too much of the clear resin into the container or the mold. So this is where the idea of doing a flower to the top I had. So here are the mica powder. Here is the liquid dye that I'm using for the resin, and of course I had it upside down, which I didn't notice until showing it, but here I am pouring in the mixture that I made earlier. That's after I realized that I'm not going to do like a traditional flower for the top, which I probably should have. Now that I think about it, probably should have kept with the flower, but it still looks gorgeous, trust me. So I'm just here trying to shape the flower that I was going for. Not remembering that the spot in the middle with the circle that I was trying to put the flower petals at was the part that shouldn't have been covered with resin, because that's where the soap dispenser is going to be at. And now I'm going over to the main mold to actually hold the soap. I'm just going to start with a little bit of the clear, and then I'm going to add in some of the coloring. And mix it, give it a good mix until it's mixed really well. Sometimes you gotta keep mixing it and then like lift it so you can see if it's the consistency that you're looking for. So you'll see me doing that often when I'm mixing in either the mica powder or in the liquid dye. and then just keep adding more in until you get it to look the way that you're trying to get it to look, or how opaque or how dark the color is. And then I added in my glitter. Just get mixing. Go pouring in both, and I wanted it to be like a swirl effect, so I'm just gonna try to pour in both at the same time and kind of swirl it in. First, I'm just gonna add a little bit of resin to the mold. I don't know what was going on through my head at that time, but something was going on. So here I am, also trying to do a flower at the bottom of the mold, but not realizing that there's a lot of resin that's going to go in here, and what I'm doing now is just the basic, so it's not going to stay that way because it's going to eventually drip down. So that's why I just stopped right there. I was like, oh, I can't do it right now because it's not full yet. So here's me with my spinner. I forgot what the actual name is called, but I had this idea to do the spinning effect of both resin. And here I am spinning it. Of course, I didn't film it in a way that you can see it, but I figured that putting it on this spinner should help with getting the desired swirl effect I was looking for with it. Pouring it in, trying to get it in, trying to pour it in a way that you can see it, but of course it's kind of hard when you already have a camera set up and resin's all on your hands, so I didn't get to have it the way I wanted to look, or as far as filming. Alright, so now I'm straightening out the plastic on the table. I always lay plastic on my table so that I can use the same spot over again. It's me. I love being in the zone and just making stuff, and sometimes doing so I might spill some of the resin or color it on the table, and instead of me having a big mess to clean up at the end, I just toss the tablecloth or shower curtain. I just go to Dollar Tree and get a tablecloth, the shower curtain, and put it on there. Sometimes the plastic does rip, so I do end up getting resin or something onto the desk, but most times I don't. So here's me pouring in the remaining portion that I poured for the soap mold, and I am not leaving any behind. I try to scrape up as much of it I can and pour it into the mold. Now this is the spot where I was saying that if I had tried to do the flower there, it would have just eventually dripped down into the bottom portion of the mold. So I'm here just scraping it off so that I can do a different design later. All of it, cleaned it all off. Get it as clean as possible. Since it's only filled looks about 1/3 of the way, it would have, by the time it dried, it would have just been sitting on the that part of the mold and wouldn't have set properly, some of it would have dripped down into the remaining portion. So just had to take it off. Now here I am using my mat, my heating mat, so I can have it set quicker. I have that, and that there in the back is the soap dish that I worked on, which I will upload the video later. Okay, so here is about 6 hours later, and now I'm adding in the other portion of the resin to it. I'm getting all the colors ready. Now we got the resin. So it is a 1-to-1 clear epoxy resin that I'm using. So I'm using 1 part A, 1 part B, and I kind of eyeball it on the measuring cup. Sometimes I eyeball it, sometimes you will see me actually using a scale. Either way is fine, but some people will say using a scale is better. I personally like eyeballing it, getting down to eye level of the cup so I can see it, and using that because it's more, for me, it's easier for me to do because I don't have to grab the scale and move the scale and whatnot, where I could just eyeball the cup and pour in the resin. Only problem is when you're pouring it and you pour too much of one part when you already have the other part in the cup. So that's the problem that could happen. So using a scale might be better overall, but because I've been using epoxy resin for about 5 years now, I don't make that mistake as much. Here I am, this is after I mixed it, and I'm using Les Resin's bubble mixer popper. I will link that down below and have the actual name on the screen. But yes, I have their mixer and I also have their resin bubble popper. And for some reason I didn't film when I used the mixer, but I did film when I used the bubble popper, which you set for about 10 minutes and let it pop all of the bubbles so it can have a clear pour, and you don't have to wait 10 minutes so the bubbles will pop by itself, or use a heat gun where you can use this. I will link both the mixer and the resin bubble popper in the description below, as well as any of the colors, resin, or anything that I've used in the video. And I'm just pouring in the cups. I like to keep pouring a little bit at a time, just in case I want to change up the color at the last minute. So here I am pouring just a clear coat on the remaining portion of the top part of the soap dispenser, and fill it all the way up to the top. And now adding in the gold. And of course it's not coming out the way I wanted to. Oh, just mix it until you get the consistency that you're looking for. When I pour the mica powder or the color dye, I normally don't measure it. I just pour it and mix, and then lift the stick until it's the consistency that I'm looking for. If I'm looking for a more opaque color, or depending on how transparent you want the color to be, depends on how much you pour. You pour a little bit more if you want it darker, and if you so happen to make it and pour too much of the color, just add in some more resin. That's another reason why I don't pour it all at one time into a cup, just in case I'm looking for a clearer consistency than what I accidentally poured in. So I'm just adding in more of the gold mica powder and just giving it a good stir. just a tip. It is good to mix your mica powder or the liquid dye for about 2 minutes for a good consistency. Now I'm adding in the blue foil flakes because the kitchen colors is blue, gold, and white. Giving that a good stir, get it as mixed in as possible. And of course, there is no resin left behind. We use all the resin over here. Whatever's mixed, we use as much of it as possible. Then this is the idea. I was like, oh yeah, I need to add in the white. So then I had to go grab the white so I can use, and I wasn't sure how I wanted to go, so I just random stuff just popped in my head. So I'm like, okay, let me just pour a little bit here on the mold. But then I realized it's not going to set right if there's no resin, so that's why I poured in the resin. It's like, okay, now I can add in the white dots to give it like a polka dot effect. That's what I was going for initially. So you'll see me pouring that in. Little dots. And of course, that was in that white one. I'm trying to get as much of it out as possible. But of course, it didn't want to participate. It was giving up. But now that I add the resin, if you see here, the splash of the white in there, which I was like, it's like for me, it's like a marble effect, which is what I was going for. And now I had to go get the other white because that one didn't. That one was done for. And now the moment you have been waiting for. It's the final pour. And of course, there is no resin left behind. You scrape it all up out of the cup. As long as it's mixed in properly, I will use it. No point of wasting anything. And of course, I'm not realizing that all of this, you can't see anything but the cup. But I think you get the point. And this, I just added in some clear, just because I didn't pour enough for the mixture. So that's why I'm mixing in the gold, the colored pour versus the second pour, the clear pour, because I forgot it. Here is the next day, and I am demolding it. I always rub my finger across it to make sure that there is no space between the top of the mold and the actual resin set. Because if it is, then I will have to pour in an extra layer because I didn't pour enough after it's set. And now here's the part where I'm seeing that this middle piece that I was trying to put the flower on, it has to go away because I won't be able to stick the stick of the soap dispenser into it. So now I have this, geez, I forgot what the thing is called, but I got these from Hobby Lobby. X-Acto knife. It's called an X-Acto knife. Yeah, I know. It took a while for me to figure it out. This X-Acto knife I'm using to cut, and you want to be careful when you're cutting, because you don't want to cut your finger like I did a couple years ago, where I had to get stitches in my finger because I went to go cut it and cut my finger. So definitely be careful when you are using an X-Acto knife. It's just that, it's a knife, and it's really sharp, and that was painful. But here I am cutting out the center so I can be able to put the stick from the soap dispenser into the middle so I can actually use the pump. So do not pour resin on that spot unless you want to have some fun time trying to take this off. And you see the X-Acto knife came out. You can actually use like a heat gun to it to kind of melt it or soften it a little bit, but because I was done with the entire thing, I just decided to use my strength and poke a hole in it to cut it out. Here I am cutting it all out, the center, and after that's done, making sure that all of the pieces on the edge is cut off. Zoom in so you can see a little bit more. I am still cutting off some of it. When you get close enough, you can see how much of the excess resin was still on there. So I'm cutting that piece off and then running my finger over it to see if it's smooth enough. And this is the part where I'm using the sander to sand it down to make sure it's smooth, because nobody wants to go and use the soap dispenser and go and touch it and then their fingers hurt because the edges ain't smooth. That's why I gotta smooth it down. I always have the sander with me whenever I'm working with resin for that exact reason, because I would hate to have a product or anything like that that is not smooth, and you want something that you think that is not made top tier. Here I am scraping sanding the sides to make sure it's smooth like butter. And now that that's done, I am working on the main part of the main component of the soap dispenser. Now this was hard as I don't know what. I can't even describe how hard it was. It was so difficult to really get that off. So I did struggle. Tried using the stick to try to loosen up the mold from holding on to the resin. And you can see like it's kind of popping up a little bit, but that still wasn't good enough. After countless minutes, I think it took me like 10 to 20 minutes to finally get that off. You see me taking it off screen, only because I'm trying to stick my fingers in there and pull it down, and it's pulling against my chest so I can have some kind of support while I'm trying to pull it down without breaking my nails and hurting and cutting my fingers. So oftentimes I do cut my fingers trying to take things off. So yes, that is the struggle. The struggle is real with working with this sometimes, but I did find a new solution where you can use some silicone oil to help loosen up the mold off of the product. So I haven't used it in this video, but I will show you a video where I do use it, which would be much easier. I'm going to make another soap dispenser. This one is in my kitchen, but the next one will be in my bathroom. So I will show you that one, start to finish, even with pouring the first couple of resin. And I'll show taking it out with the silicone oil, which will be the first time I'm using it. So, all right, I'm struggling really hard to get this off. Now you can start to see the colors coming out, the blue, the gold, the white splash that I did at the, well, it was at the bottom. You see the little red scratches on my fingers. Yeah. So I didn't have time. Well, I did have time, but I didn't sand down the edge, which I should have probably done that first. But it's okay. At this point, it was so hard to take off. I was so tempted to just cut the dang on mold off. But then I thought, if I cut it off, then I'm gonna have to go buy some more. So yeah, I just had to figure out a way to take it off without allowing my stress of trying to take it off control me. So yeah. Again, after about 10 to 20 minutes of me struggling with this, it was a miracle that I had finally got it to the tipping point at the top. And you see me pull off the last bit of it, of the mold. And here is the end of it, being out of the mold. See how beautiful the colors are. Just, oh my God, I am so happy the way that this came out. Now all I gotta do is cut off the excess resin and then sand down the bottom. Even though it's gonna go on the sink, I still don't want it to hold it and it's just scrape my fingers because the edge is so rough. So I do get that off, and of course I'm gonna remind you again, be careful when you're cutting. Make sure your fingers are not in the way. Trust me, it was a pain. And that was like 3 years ago, and I swear my finger is still healing. My finger still remembers it. My finger automatically just moves out of the way. It's still traumatized. All right, now here I am sanding it down the edges. Make sure it's smooth. Now that I'm done, I'm going to take these baby wipes that I got from Dollar Tree to wipe it down because all of the excess sanding dust, or whatever you call it, is still on there. So I'll take some alcohol and put it on the baby wipe, and then I'll wipe it all off. And that's rubbing alcohol that I'm using. And of course, some of the baby white got stuck to it, and there's part of it that still needs to be sanded. So here's me sanding it, and using the baby wipe again to wipe up the excess dust from it. And now I'll put this on. And I did forget to film the part where I use a little bit of resin to put it on, like kind of douse it onto the lid, so the lid can stick to the main portion, the main body of the dispenser. I just added a tad bit of resin around the rim of the lid and put it on there and let it set. That part I did forget to film. Now it's me using the spinner I have. And product. And now I'm going to show you what it's like when it's in my kitchen and actually putting some soap in my hand. Thank you for watching. Bye.